Hey guys, this is Gabby from the Fox's Photography, and I'm just going to chat with you about how we like to use our presets. Before we get started, just want to mention we like to shoot slightly underexposed. So usually when we start editing, our photo will look like this. It'll be a little bit dark. But after we apply our preset, just gonna throw the fox on there, then we'll just bring this exposure up to where we want it. And usually everything's slightly cooler as well, just because of how we like to shoot. So we'll bring the temperature up a little bit. And that's generally all we really do. Sometimes we might do extra tweaking with like the shadows or the HSL slider or split toning. But for the most part, the two main adjustments we make with our preset is exposure and temperature. Cool. So that looks pretty good. I'll give you before, after. And all right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so same thing. Slightly underexposed. Go ahead and apply our Fox preset on there. And I'm just going to bring this up. Only a couple, let's see. I kind of like this one a little bit brighter. And I'm just going to make it quite a bit warmer here. Yeah, maybe not quite so much. So there we go. That's looking good. Cool. All right, next photo. So I'll just throw on our Fox edit. And that looks great to me. I'm not even going to change the temperature. I think that looks perfect. A little before, after. Next one. So this one is obviously in the desert, so different colors, but the preset looks really great here too. Might just bump the exposure up 1 or 2 ticks, and there's the before, there's the after. Okay, so this one I'm going to use Fox Harsh because these guys are just in shadow and I'd like to bring them up without losing any of the background here. So I'll just go ahead, throw on the Fox Harsh. And generally, we end up having to bring the exposure down a little bit if we're using Fox Harsh. Sometimes if you drop it on a photo that was taken like middle of the day, direct sunlight, you probably don't have to bring it down, but generally we have to bring the exposure down just a little bit with Fox Harsh. And same thing, I'm just going to bring our temperature up. Cool. So I think that looks pretty nice. There's the before, there's the after. Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you Fox Harsh, or I'm going to use Fox Harsh on this one as well. Fox Harsh is great for when you're shooting directly into the sun. Sunrises, sunsets, just like this. Bring the exposure up. Right there. Cool. I love that. There's the before. There's the after. And of course, like if you like things on the warmer side, you can bring the temperature up a little bit, but I actually really like the way the blues look in these mountains here, so I am going to leave it just like that. Okay, next one here. So sometimes when we're shooting in forests and it's an overcast day, you get some very, very harsh contrast between the highlights and the shadows. So to combat that, we created Fox Matte. It's not really a matte edit or a matte look. We just call it matte because it's slightly more matte compared to our contrasty Fox edit. But it works perfect for situations like this, especially if your clients are like really fair skinned or a white dress. It just kind of keeps those highlights a little bit more subdued. Cool. So yeah, again, we actually just left the exposure at 0 and then brought the temperature up a little bit. But there's the before and the after. And next one. Okay, cool. So this is actually another example of when to use the Fox Matte. We find that right before sunset, the light that reflects off the water creates this like really harsh glow on highlights and skin tone. So for example, like with the regular Fox edit, you get this like really crazy, like super rich, saturated, hot highlights. But the matte ends up being the perfect kind of medium there. It's still contrasty, it's still beautiful, but it's definitely a lot softer on these highlights, and it doesn't have that like really crazy glow to it. That's the before, and that's the after. Okay, and for this one, I'm actually going to use our black and white preset. So let's go ahead and jot that on. Cool. And with this preset, sometimes you might have to bump the exposure up a little bit. Sometimes it can be a little bit dark. This particular case, it wasn't. But just a heads up, sometimes we end up having to bring the exposure up on it. I'm actually going to bring this down a little here. But yeah, and you'll notice that there's a lot more grain in our black and white preset relative to our color preset, and that's just because we just like that look. We like that kind of gritty look on black and whites. But you can mess with the different grains that we have here. If you don't like that harsh grain, you can just throw on a softer grain and kind of mess with those things. But yeah, so that's our black and white preset. So this is actually not our photo. This is Don Jarvis's photo. Thank you so much, Don, for sending us some of your images. This is a Canon file, so we just wanted to show you guys how the preset works with different file types. I think I forgot to mention this, but all of the images that I was just showing you were shot on Nikon. This is Canon, so you can get a good idea of how our preset works with different file types as well. So I'm just going to throw the Fox regular on there, and I'm going to cool it down just a little bit. That looks good. And then I might just bring that exposure up a hair. There's the before, there's the after. Such a beautiful photo. Next one is actually a Nina Larson photo. Thank you, Nina. Such a beautiful photo. So Nina shoots on Fuji, so you can see what our edit looks like with Fuji. And I'm going to actually use the Fox Harsh on this one so that we can bring up the shadows of our subject and also keep that really beautiful light that's hitting the mountain here. And I'm going to warm it up just a little bit. Beautiful. Love that. There's a before and after. And our last photo, courtesy of Henry II, another incredibly talented photographer. Thanks for sending us your photos, Henry. Henry shoots on Sony. So we're going to just throw a regular Fox edit on here. And I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit. And I'm actually going to use one of our brushes called Shadow Booster. We have a Shadow Booster and a Sky Booster. So I'm just going to use the Shadow Booster here and just lightly apply it. And the way the Shadow Booster works is when you first put it on, the flow is only at 40. So if you wanted to make it a little bit heavier, you can just click and brush it again, and you can actually keep brushing it. It keeps getting brighter and brighter. I'm gonna brush a little bit down here, and I'm thinking I may have brushed a little bit too much, so then I can just go into erase and get some of that back a little bit. But I think that looks pretty great. There's the before, there's the after. Well, there you have it. Hope that was helpful, and I hope that you guys enjoy using these presets as much as we do. Thanks so much for watching.